rid of these. Hey everybody, Rahz here from fitnessbusinessmastery.com. I'm excited to have a great interview with AJ Roberts. And AJ, if you don't know him, you've been living under a rock. This is a man who's done it all in the fitness industry, from powerlifting to speaking to product development to now being one of the top sought after coaches in the industry for teaching people just like us, entrepreneurs, how to grow and scale their businesses, because he's done it. I'm excited to bring some of his content to you guys today. I'd like to welcome to the Fitness Business Mastery world, AJ Roberts. How you doing today, AJ?
Good, man. How about yourself?
I'm doing it phenomenal, my friend. Been looking forward to this all day to kind of get on here and chat with you and just kind of pick your brain a little bit and share some of your nuggets of wisdom.
Well, let's see what we can come up with.
I'm sure we're going to get some good stuff. So, there are probably some people who are newer to the industry that might not know who you are, some of that. Real briefly, I don't want to go back to when you had a little red bike, but what's your story? Can you share with us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so I was going to college, University of Idaho, and through a series of unfortunate events, I was eligible. I didn't get through NCAA clearinghouse to play sports, and so I started just volunteering in the weight room to be around the athletes, and thinking I was eventually going to play. Go into collegiate strength and conditioning. However, working alongside the strength and conditioning coaches, I realized that they were broke. They all had extreme debt that they couldn't cover. And there really was no way to make more money as a collegiate strength and conditioning coach unless you ended up at one of the top schools as the head strength and conditioning coach. And I think at the time, the top salary for that was about $250,000 a year, which, I mean, that's a great salary. Don't get me wrong. But in order to get to that, you look at all the steps and you're thinking, man, I'm going to have to suffer for a long time in order to get there. So I started looking at other options and stumbled across Ryan Lee, went to my first Ryan Lee boot camp and saw the presenters up on stage and selling info products and, that kind of stuff. And I was like, man, I should be on this stage. And the thought process there was a lot of the stuff that was being revealed, I understood. I was using in my training. I was already quite a successful powerlifter. And so I just assumed, I got some information that needs to get out to the world. And so, I realized, okay, well, I'll just open my own private studio. I'll sell information products and I'll kind of build myself up as a fitness celebrity, so to speak. And so I opened a small gym and out of college and opened the doors and thought, man, people were just going to flood in, once they find out about it, I'm going to be a millionaire. And, so I did that. And also was launching an online info product and thought the same thing. I'll put this out there and I'll be a millionaire. And long story short, I had some success, but it wasn't a home run. And that left me going, well, what's missing here? I'm very good at what I do. I have the skill sets and I can get results, but where are all the customers? Where are all the clients? Why is nobody showing up? And what I realized is the old saying, they'll build it and they will come, just isn't true. And that's what led me down the path of sales and marketing and discovering, that it's not the skill set that makes the money. It's the selling of the skill set. And that's when I realized that if I wanted to be successful, I needed to understand the business side of stuff. And I'm a very deep learner, so that led me on an endless path. And through that, just acquiring knowledge and learning things, and then the application of that and getting results, kind of led me to where I am today, where people are asking for my help because I've kind of gone through that experience. So really, what my story there was just that I was struggling as a personal trainer, and I just wanted to figure out how do I make money doing this. And then long story short, got to a point where I was traveling the world teaching powerlifting seminars and doing all of that, and just realized that for me to have the biggest impact, I just keep moving up the ladder on who I work with and who I help. And what I realized was I absolutely love coaching, but how many hours do I have a week, and how many people can I really work with? What if I have 1,000 coaches that I'm helping? What if I have 10,000 gyms because of the ability of me to coach? And so I just continue to move up who I work with, but the drive is still the same. It's to help help people overcome the troubles they have. And, that's really been my journey along the way, is just as I've continued to improve and get better, just to pass that forward and pass on that knowledge so that the next person can hopefully take it and pass it on too. And so that's how we've ended up here today, I guess.
Absolutely. Well, I've had the pleasure of following that career and watching you from the powerlifting to getting on stage to doing all of the different things. And I agree with you. Like, selling is so important. It's one of the things that has allowed me to truly create the life that I have now. And I'm still in that process of going and developing. What would you say? I mean, that's one of the topics that a lot of personal trainers I don't find them being very strong at. Why do you feel that is? And what advice would you give to someone just entering into the space and wanting to go online and or have an offline business, but bringing it all together? What is the key components to selling?
What's interesting is, and this is I'm always learning, and I never close my mind off to new ideas. And so I used to think a lot of times people didn't sell because of what they thought selling was, right? And you hear it, you think selling, all car salesman, pushy, thing. But what I've began to think, and what I think will maybe ring true to more of your listeners, is the fact that oftentimes we don't take action, or we procrastinate because we're uncertain of the end result. And number one, humans don't like rejection. And anytime we're in a sales conversation, just like if we were at the bar trying to meet a partner or to make new friends as a kid on the playground, the worst feeling in the world is rejection. And so, number one, we've got this fear of rejection, that someone isn't going to want to move forward with us, and we take it personal. We're attached to the outcome. Instead of seeing it as just a conversation and a numbers game where, I've got something that could help this person. They don't want it. Okay, move on. Find that person who it is a right fit for. We are emotionally attached to that because that's just the way we're conditioned. I think that's the number one reason why most people don't really embrace selling, is this fear of rejection, and they're they're emotionally attached to the outcome. Someone says no, they take it personal. They're saying no to me, versus they're saying no to the opportunity, or no to the. So we're not detached from what we do, right? Identity. I'm a personal trainer, therefore, if someone says no, they say no to me, not no to personal training, And so that's the first barrier that we have to overcome. And then the second barrier that we have to overcome, and I often think is very misunderstood, is the fact that there's only so many hours in the day, and there's only so much energy expenditure that we have at our fingertips, right? And there's ways we can maximize that. But ultimately, we're not going to do anything that we think is going to make us uncomfortable, unhappy, right? And so there's a psychological process going on, unbeknownst to us, subconsciously, that if we actually go out and sell, when we book ourselves solid, well, now we're going to be unhappy because now I don't have free time. Now I don't know what to do. Now, and so there's this self-defeating process that goes on. And because of the uncomfortability, the fear of rejection, and then it's like, if someone does say yes, oh shit, now I'd be able to actually get that person results. And that is more than just the 1 hour we spend with them. And I was actually having a conversation with my father. He's a photographer, and we were talking about, how he sells his services, and the fact that, let's say he does a wedding, so he spends 1 day doing the wedding. Well, it's going to take him, probably 5-6 days to edit the photos from that wedding. So that client hires him. He goes to their wedding for an hour. They don't see all the stuff that goes on in the background. Yes. And that's something that most trainers don't take into consideration, is when they sell a 1 hour session or whatever it is they're selling, whether it's group training, whatever, there's programming that goes into that. There's, you've got to have enough equipment. So you've got to be creative. There's hopefully nutritional stuff going in there, accountability, all this other stuff that is more than just that hour. And this is what I talk a lot about to people, is understanding the value of their time. And so a lot of times we're really unaware of what we're actually selling. And so our mindset is we're selling an hour, but actually what happens is when we take on that client takes up more than the time we imagined. So we're not exactly enthusiastic to go sell another person, right? And a lot of it is just lack of awareness around that. We never really pay attention to everything. We don't write down everything. We don't, the more we get a grasp on the reality, the easier it is to move forward. And so you can say like, okay, my max capacity with this business model would be 20 clients a week, right? If it was one-to-one, say, that's my personal max, like what I can do. And I'm only going to work during these hours because let's face it, no trainer really is wanting to get up at 4 a.m. in the morning. And so once you have a grasp on that, then it's, you got to find the right people to fit the mold. And so a lot of the times the sales component is more difficult because they don't actually know what they're selling. And it's hard to sell something if you just think it's the personal training or you just think it's the group sessions. And so, as you know, I teach about you're solving a problem, but it's whether you actually have the ability to solve that problem. And I think that's, people talk about mindset, versus process and things like that. I don't think you can have any independently. I think it has to come together. But a lot of the times I think that most people struggle with sales because they want to please people, right? They don't want the rejection. And then ultimately they don't know what that person really needs, or they don't know, what it is how they're going to give that person that. So all of that leads them to say, well, I'm not going to sell aggressively, or I'm just going to let people come to me. And so they just really, and again, it depends on your commitment to the client's results, but it really comes down to, not understanding what it is that really is taking place between two people. And I think once they do get it and understand that, as a trainer, you have the ability to change someone's life, and that is priceless. And that person is coming to you because they have no ability to achieve it on their own, right? They've tried, they've failed, they don't trust themselves, they need someone to hold them accountable. Once you understand that you're not there to be their friend, it's kind of like parenting. Once you understand you're not there to be their friend first, right? Yes, you want a friendship, but that's not your primary responsibility. Your primary responsibility is to get them to understand what they need to do. Now, if they choose not to show up, if they choose not to do what you tell them, you have to be detached from the results because that's not yours. And I think that a lot of people struggle with that. So, it's hard to answer it specifically because every individual has their own kind of barrier. But I think that it goes beyond just what people think sales is. And I think that once people realize that they do have a gift and they do have the ability to transform someone's life, and not just their life, but the life of their children and their partners and, everyone in their thing, it almost becomes your duty then to make sure that that person doesn't leave without understanding the consequences of their decision. Whether they move forward with you or not, do they understand the consequence of their decision? Once you get to that point, now you're able to frame the sales conversation differently. And I think that is where it goes from selling to just a conversation and helping someone come to a decision of what it is they want and whether you can deliver that service or not. And if you can, if they don't move forward with you, it's simply because they either don't trust themselves or they don't believe they can get the results through what it is you're offering. And once you realize that all other objections, money, time, all of those are just surface level excuses, we can start to look for those root causes of that. And sometimes it goes beyond our capabilities. We have to know our limitations. And I think that's tough sometimes to have a conversation with someone and to realize that, hey, I can actually help this person because we want to help them. But for example, my wife, she's a sports nutritionist, works with very high level athletes. Well, unfortunately, even athletes have food problems, food addictions. They have suffer with bulimia, anorexia, things like that, right? And that's not her skill set. And so if that comes up and it was missed through whatever process of bringing the client on, they make it through that process and become a client, and this surfaces later on, the first thing she does is immediately end the relationship in terms of her being their nutrition coach, and refers them to a professional who can actually help them with the issue at hand. When and if that person then is able to get a handle of that, then they're able to return as a client. But how many professionals are willing to do that, right? And that's the question. That's the real question is that if you understand your limitations and you just become really good at that, that eventually the right people will come up. And it's the long-term process versus short-term process. And so selling, and the difficulty with selling a lot of times comes in because we have to admit our limitations. We have to be honest with the people, and we have to be willing to be to reject them and for them to reject us without emotionally getting involved. And so when you look at it like that, you're like, man, that's a lot to take on, right? It's a lot to move forward with.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, and I mean, thank you for that. I think that anyone who's watching this there are so many nuggets right there, but I mean, understanding staying in your lane is so crucial. I think a lot of people think that they can solve everything. And it's one of the things that one of my philosophies is specialize. I know exactly who we can serve and why we serve them and why we do it better. And it makes my marketing very easy. It makes my conversation, it just makes it very easy to say, here's what we do. Do you fit? Great. Let's move forward. Do you have the means to do so? And let's make it happen. So, I mean, that's basically what you were saying there. AJ, why do you think, that the fitness industry has such a failure rate right now? Like, I mean, I don't know how many people, I know that you're working with higher level, but I'm getting a lot of people who are, just beginning a year, 2 years in, and they're still struggling. What do you think is one of the biggest roadblocks that are stopping them from being successful fitness professionals who can make a true living without working 25 hours a day?
Delusion. And I don't say that to be mean, but I think that something you have to realize is, and I'll preface this with, you can become anything you want to become, right? If you're willing to do whatever it takes. That's the caveat, right? And so when we look at it, and I'll just use the scholastic system as an example, right? When you go to school, you have those people that get A's, and they don't really have to study, right? They show up, they're intelligent, they're bright, and they get their A-level students. Then we have A-level students who struggle, but spend their time studying, investing, getting a tutor, doing whatever it takes to get that A, right? And then you've got people who, show up, get B's. Then you got people who really try and get B's, and then you got the C's, and on and on. And there's people who never graduate high school that are some of the most intelligent people. And then there's people who don't graduate high school who aren't, right? And so we have this spectrum, and we have this range. But, like I said, you can achieve anything if you're willing to do the work and do whatever it takes. We know that IQ is not a fixed number, right? It's education-based, it's knowledge-based, it's time. Some people need different processes and systems, and people need different coaches to help them because this coach has a system, but it doesn't work for that person, which a lot of the times comes down to personality-based, comes down to DNA, comes down to structure. We go on and on and on. There's a reason there's a million diets, right? And the thing with when it comes to business and it comes to getting results for clients, and we were having this conversation actually over dinner last night about coaching, and there's an art to coaching. And if you don't understand human psychology, you don't understand conscious level, you don't understand motivation, you don't understand love languages, the list goes on and on and on. And so your ability to take a system and have someone go through it, that's one thing. Your ability to take a system and customize it for individuals based on who they are is different. And there's two types of, people in the industry. There's those that say, this is what we do. You either fit or you don't fit, right? And so they're very specific on who they take on. So their success rate is very, very high. And if you think of it like Bobby Knight back when he was coaching for Indiana, right? Bobby Knight, for those that don't know, is one of the craziest coaches that ever existed in college basketball. He'd throw chairs, he punched players. I mean, this guy was out of control. But guess what? His players thrived under that condition. But if I'm a player who's not going to allow someone to yell at me, I'm not going to play with Bobby Knight, right? But he was very successful in his way. So I'm not saying that's right or wrong, but it works for the right people.
Mm-hmm.
Then you have coaches who think they can help everybody, and they don't realize that they can't because they don't have the spectrum of knowledge in order to be able to do that. And so the failure rate happens because we don't understand where the person we're working with is in their journey, and what's happened to them in the past, and what they need moving forward. And a lot of the times we don't acknowledge that someone coming to us saying they want to lose weight is really not the goal.
Yes.
Right? And it's like when someone goes to a doctor and says, I'm sick, the goal is to stop being sick. Right? But they don't really understand what made them sick. They're not trying to fix that problem, even though they don't want to get sick. So when someone comes to us and they're overweight or they're not happy with where they're at, ultimately it comes back to wanting to be happy. And we've got to figure out why are they unhappy and what are the triggers. And so it goes, we have to be willing to go deep with our clients and really understand what their individual goals are. And if we're not willing to go deeper, understand our limitations and not be delusional that it's going to work for everyone, right? And goes back to knowing, like you said, staying in the lane and knowing that. And so I think the failure rate comes down to, when you look at coaches, we got a lot of A+ players, we got a lot of Bs, we got a lot of Cs, and then we got a low level people. Now that doesn't mean they can't get their abilities up, but we've got people who are claiming to be able to do stuff that they can't. And so, but that's really what the problem is, in my view, is just simply that, a lot of people, instead of striving to be A+ players, think that they can have their F grade, but yet somehow make $1 million. And I think that just comes down to personal acknowledgement and saying, you know what, I don't hold myself to this standard. Why would my clients listen to me? I don't hold myself to this standard in life. Why would someone be inspired by me to do it? And I think it's just a constant chipping away at your own character. And I think that if trainers took more personal responsibility for themselves, and learning about themselves and growing themselves, that would transfer over into their clients. I've yet to meet a very successful coach in the industry who hasn't done a lot of personal development work on themselves. And I think that's kind of, that at the end of the day, you can only help someone as far as you've gone. You can, just because you're inspired by someone who runs an ultra marathon, if you've never run an ultra marathon, or maybe you did work with an ultra marathon runner out of something, and so you've gained some experience not being it. I don't want to say you have to actually do the activity or the sport yourself. You have to have experience in it, and of course you've got to start somewhere. But if you say, you know what, I really think I can help high-level entrepreneurs, people who are running $1 million companies, I think I could really help them deal with their stress management. Yes, in theory, but your experience is non-existent. And so maybe you can get some people to trust you, maybe you can't, but you don't really know what goes on, and subconsciously they know you don't know what goes on, right? And so there's a lot of communication that's not done verbally. And I think that is what really causes lack of results, because, if I was trying to work with a bunch of mothers and I was telling them, hey, you just need to, eat healthy and do this. And they're like, wait a minute, but my husband wants to take me out and my children want to go to McDonald's and you have no understanding. They might never say that to me, but subconsciously they go, this guy doesn't have a clue, right? Until I get those results. So it's a little bit chicken and the egg. But you have to be willing to know, okay, this is who I can and can't help. And I always talk about, look back at your past. What experience do you have? Start there, and that'll be the most powerful thing you do. And when you bring that forward, the results follow. And I think that if people focus on actually being able to get results, and here's the secret. If you're a new coach or you're inexperienced, there is coaches out there that can write programs for you that offer that. Like, because of the internet, there's no reason to offer a subpar, training program anymore. You can go hire someone to write that for you. Yes, it's going to cost you a little bit of money, and then you're the one who is, coaching your clients through it. but at least you know your clients are getting the very best, and then you focus on the rest, which is accountability, compliance, all of those things. That's what they're really paying for. They're not paying for the sets and reps in the gym. They're paying for the person that's actually going to take them through it, and that's you. So it really comes down to just, knowing your limitations and striving to improve. And once you hold yourself to a higher standard, you'll be surprised at the results that the clients begin to get. And I wrote this down this morning. It's interesting we're having this conversation, but I wrote this down this morning about myself because I fall into this trap. I wrote down, tell less, show more, meaning stop telling people stuff and start just showing them, lead by the example. So I think that that's something we can all probably, learn from.
Absolutely, man. I love it because when it's so funny, what you're saying there is like a lot of people believe that they can just kind of go out there, throw a Facebook page up there, start marketing to a niche because we've heard, there's riches and niches and go after something that, but they've never done it. And until I specialize in working with women with menopause. I didn't just do that. I surveyed over 1,000 clients. I created my own book. I went out and interviewed people, and then I became one of the foremost experts in it because it was easy. It's what I do, And I think a lot of trainers, that's why they fail, like you were saying. Or they start to focus so much on the personal growth, and they don't have the actual skill set to get the results. So this is a great transition because I know you've done a shit ton of marketing for everybody in the industry, different companies, so on and so forth. So I really wanted you to, and this was a conversation I was having at my mastermind, branding and marketing for fitness professionals. What's important? Should they be branding? Should they be marketing? And what's the difference? Because I can tell you that I think a lot of people who read my blog, watch my stuff, they don't really know the difference. They think that they're branding if you got a small studio with 20 clients, you don't need a brand. You really just need to get out there and market and let people, you're obscure. No one knows who the hell you are. What are your thoughts on that?
I think the best form of branding is just results. And I think the biggest thing, and I have this conversation with a lot of my clients they've got members who have been members for a year or for 2 years. And I'll say, when was the last time you sat down and did a goal setting session with them? Because the results matter and people's results and goals change. And so, if someone signs up with you and in the first 3 months, they're not willing to give you a case study or a testimonial, that's because they haven't got the results that they desire, right? A lot of the times, if you've blown them away, they're going to want to shout from the rooftops. So when it comes to branding and marketing, and this is like where a lot of people struggle is because they're looking for that, like, well, what's the secret? The secret is get results and then let the results tell the stories, right? And so there is a method. There's a method to telling a story. There's a method to getting a good testimonial. There's a method to creating what we call sellamentaries or documentaries that are sales processes. There is systems for that. But ultimately, that's what your branding is. That's what your marketing is. Logos and things like that, like, those are cool things. And like, they add, I think that you do need to put some thought into it if long term, but in terms of like whether that matters, like, nobody signs up because you got something as cool as the Nike swoosh on your jacket, right? They sign up because they believe you're going to get them the results that they want. No logo can convey that. What conveys that is actually before and afters. And we are in an industry that is lucky that we have that. I mean, it's funny, you go to plastic surgeon, someone who does tummy tucks and breast enlargements and things like that, before and after, before and after, before and after. We should have those same. If we don't, then something's missing, because our before and afters aren't just weight loss, right? We've got muscle gain, we've got confidence, we've got measurements, we've this endless list of things that we can rake. So you might not be a weight loss specialist, doesn't mean you can't have a before and after. What's more powerful? Showing someone belly being able to do a body weight squat and then squatting, 2 plates on a barbell? That's a pretty strong visual, right? Having them, interviewing them in the gym, but then and having footage with their family, talking about how they had no confidence and now they're, so happy and they're better parents. Great visual. That's what people need to be focused on. And I think that what it comes back to is that I love the quote from Gandhi. And I say it over and over again. So if you've heard it before, I apologize. But it's your life is your message, you know, and your life is your message. Then your client's life become your message. And that's what the brand is. The brand should be an extension of your personality, your client's personality, and everything the business envisions. That's what brand is. It's a personality. Best way to look at it is the Virgin brand with Richard Branson. Everything Virgin is just an extension of who he is at his core, that he put into his core values and his culture in the business. And that's what you have to do. So once you know who you are and you know what your story is and you know that, then you get the results. Like for you, your personal story is not going to sell women with menopause issues. However, the hundreds of clients' lives that you've transformed are. And that's what becomes the brand. Okay, what's their personality? What's their story? What colors attract that age group, those people? So it's hard to create brand before you have results because it's going to change. And that's something that a lot of people, they want to sit and they want to think about this stuff. And you have to have gone super deep on your custom avatar to be able to come up with this stuff before you go live. And honestly, like most people go live before they even understand, you know, what a balance sheet is. So if we waited, we'd be waiting a long time. So my thought process is, you know, you start with your story, and then as soon as you can, you transition it to your client stories, and then you begin to work out the rest of it. And it's the stumble your way forward, you know, imperfect action. And I think that's kind of, you let it reveal itself to you. And, you know, you, like you said, you survey people, you go to that. That's where you get real answers, not just made up. And it's why you see companies change over time. You know, they start one way and then they change their brand colors, or they change this because they realize that the actual audience they have isn't met by their original brand. So, you know, you could start with the logo on Fiverr and, you know, a design that you got from Upwork or something like that, and that's good enough. It's not really gonna matter. And then you change it. Worrying about the schematics of, you know, what color is my walls and things like that, that's all changeable. What's not changeable is the results. Get the results and you're good to go.
That is if I'm not a big person on Twitter, so I am not tweetables or whatever, but get results and that becomes your brand. That is just straight gold, brother. I appreciate that. You know, like marketing we talked about sales, we talked about marketing, and you can't talk about marketing without hearing that cool word, funnels. And everybody says, oh, I have a funnel that is converting this, or every fitness professional needs this funnel. I personally think that if you own a personal training studio, there's several funnels and things that you need in place. But I didn't learn that from day one. I've learned that over 10 years of having my own personal training studio. What's your philosophy on teaching trainers, coaches, gym owners about funnels, and what do they need?
Yeah, well, that's definitely a sexy word. And, you know, in old days, it just used to be called a pipeline, which ultimately is a process, right? And so the thing that most trainers need to understand, and if you're not making six figures a year in the business, not personal take home, if you're not grossing six figures, then you pretty much don't need anything but sales, right? Sales and marketing, right? Like that's all you need to be worried about. And so when it comes to funnels, you got to have a process or a system in order to get that. That's all a funnel is. And so, you know, if you've got, for example, you know, 3 different offers that you give people in order to come into the business. Let's say you have a 21-day opportunity, you have a 6-week opportunity, and you have a 12-week opportunity, right? Those are the 3 campaigns that you're going to run. Your funnel is, okay, what happens from ad to, you know, landing page, then what happens? That's the funnel, right? But then your sales process, what's the funnel for your sales process, right? And that's where I think a lot of people don't think. As you grow, once you get beyond 6 figures, then you start looking at things like customer experience funnels and survey funnels and cancellation funnels. And what it really is you're automating the business. And, you know, you start with your standard operating procedures, documenting the things you do, and then you decide, well, could this be done by a system, by a computer? And we create the funnels around that. And so you have to determine, first of all, you know, what it is you're selling. If you're selling just personal training, let's say just a personal training studio, well, ultimately, all you're ever going to want is a sales conversation for one-to-one personal training. So everything that becomes before that leads them to a standard place I'm a big fan of application-based selling process. So all of our marketing ends up in an application. And then from there, we have the conversation. But there is a system and a process for that. So ultimately, I think that what most people need to understand is that if you're not making six figures yet, you have a sales problem. You don't have enough people. And, you know, once you get to six figures, then you're looking, now you got to build a team, right? Because usually when you get to six figures, you can't, you're out of time. So you go, okay, well, now we got to build a team. That's usually when people start looking at hiring someone or something like that. Well, you got to know the process that that person needs to do, and, you know, what's the automation that could go with that. And that's really how you, in my mind, is how you build out your funnels. You got to think of it like a machine. The funnel is just automation within that machine, whether that's using, you know, squeeze pages and landing pages, or whether that's using automation via email. You know, the funnel is not just a landing page. And I see a lot of people selling that as, hey, we'll build you, you know, we'll build you 3 the most important funnels you need. What they're really building is 3 landing pages and 3 thank you pages that then get someone to come in for a sales conversation. It's not a funnel, right? It's like you said, it's an advertising process, pipeline, system. All together, that's what makes the business run. And so you've just got to determine, like, how many different advertisements you're going to run, how many different offers you're going to run, promotions you're going to run. And then from there, you're able to build out the funnels. You know, one of the things that baffles me is we've just had Thanksgiving. We've got Christmas coming up. Then we've got Valentine's Day. Then you're going into the summer. Then you got 4th of July. Then you got, like, back to school. Then you got Halloween, right? Those are all opportunities to run promotions, but people have a 21-day, like, you know, shake your booty, get skinny boot camp that they offer, and they try to run that same thing year round, right? All they'd have to do is rebrand it for those different things that have, you know, 5 or 6 different front end funnels, but it all leads to the same place. And so people overcomplicate stuff. In reality, there's 3 pillars that I always talk about, is, you know, advertising and marketing. You know, that's, you know, those are 2 separate things, but they fall under the same pillar. Sales, and then customer experience, right? Delivery and experience. Everything else beyond that is what happens after you get to a point. Once you build a team, you got leadership, all those things. Systems and scaling, most businesses, and this is, you know, something I've learned from going outside the industry, most businesses don't have automation systems or scaling until they're at the 7-figure mark. They literally do one thing, have one product, and they're focused on customer acquisition, right? When you're in a local business, a small business, studio, something like that, those things have to come in earlier because you're limited by space and time, right? And so, but if you don't have an advertising process down that brings you leads consistently, you don't have a sales process that converts at minimum 60%, right? Then you don't really need to be worried about whether you're building out a funnel here or a funnel there. What you got to figure out is, okay, how do I do paid advertising? Or how do I do guerrilla advertising? Or how do I rank on SEO? You got to pick whatever you're going to focus on. Master it. Does it bring me the leads I want? If so, you know, I'll take the same offer and sell it 12 different ways. And then, you know, from there, you figure out the rest of it. So it really is, you know, it comes down to what's the process. Once you understand visually the process, you know, the funnel is what makes that process happen. And there's funnels that we use in our business that are all internal. You know, someone becomes a member and that the information gets dumped into this form that then gets populated over here and spread over there. So I think you just have to think of it as like there's a machine, and in that machine, there's multiple funnels that make it work. And that there's different things that you need at different points in the business. And I think that the biggest mistake people can make is thinking, man, I need all of this right now. You got to just say, what's most important today, and just focus on that, you know, because it's easy to say, okay, I need like 12 funnels. Like, no, you don't. You need one that's working before you get to, you know.
Dude, you don't even know. I love that you said that, because that's one of my true beliefs. I mean, you just categorize it. 6 figures, you don't need all that shit. You just need to be selling. I mean, I tell people all the time, they're like, oh, do I need this type of landing page? Do I need this website? oh, you know what? I want to get that cool kettlebell. I'm like, you don't have anybody to do that shit with. So I agree. Sales, absolutely. Marketing, and then putting that process, creating an amazing experience. That is all just pure gold there. I think that anyone who wants to talk about funnels now, they just right there. Where are you? Are you making enough money? And if you're not building a team, you don't need to know about any more than that. Shifting gears a little bit, because I think this is great, a topic that I think you can speak upon. I mean, I was on your blog doing some research. I know you've had a ton of different mentors, and you, like you said early on, you really believe in learning. I have a similar philosophy in Kaizen. I believe I'm always learning. I'm always a student. And a lot of people are in our industry right now are coaches, coaching coaches, coaching coaches, coaching more coaches. And you said it earlier, they're doing it because it's kind of like the gold rush, but they haven't proven they can get results for themselves. If you were looking for a mentor right now and evaluating mentors, coaches, what were some of the criteria that you would be looking forward to looking at?
So, and this is, it's difficult to mention, and I'll try to draw a parallel here. So there was an article wrote about how Instagram, like celebrities, fitness celebrities, are ruining the industry, right? And because, they've gotten results for themselves, and now they're selling these programs, and they're doing this and they're doing that. And one of the things I try to remember is that everybody is at a different point in their journey, and that these people wouldn't be successful if there wasn't a market and a need for the level of service they're providing, right? For example, a book in a bookstore, like most people will buy and put on a shelf and never read. Someone else will buy and maybe implement, and it will change their life forever, right? But the need for that book is still there, you see? And the person who buys the book, reads the book, and then actually implements is probably going to go move up to the next level and the next level and the next level and the next level. What's happened, and what's interesting, and this is where it gets messy, is that a lot of coaches will hire someone and they'll be taught a promotion, or they'll be taught a process, like a Facebook ads campaign. Hey, 12-week, this 12-week ads, 12-week transformation challenge campaign really works, and they'll run it, and they'll get results. They'll go from $5,000 a month. They'll do a couple of months of $20,000 in sales, but it's not sustainable, right? Because it creates new problems for them. But also the advertising is not sustainable because of the platform and the speed that it changes, and the fact that you're local, and that people get ad blindness, and there's all these other things. And so oftentimes people will get results, but then they're not sustainable. And so they'll, go back to where they were, and the coaches are unable to coach them to move forward. And so when it comes to finding a coach, there's a lot that goes into it, but a lot of it is, you mentioned, have they done it before, right? Have they worked with people? Do they have case studies? Do they have, ongoing clients that continue to work with them? The other thing is, are they just teaching what someone else is teaching? Or were they someone else's student, and now they seem to be out there teaching it? That's one of the biggest things, because if less than a year ago they were a struggling trainer, and now they're teaching the process that they learned from someone else, chances are they're still a struggling trainer. And unfortunately, I know people in the industry who that's the case. They weren't able to make it work as a trainer, and they went and they decided, I'll try to be a business coach, and they're not doing very well as a business coach either. But there's enough people out there that don't know them that are able to take their money from, and the cycle repeats. And so it's an unfortunate thing that it exists, and I think a lot of it comes down to barrier of entry. And just like training, it's not exactly like there's any requirements to say, hey, I'm a coach and I'm going to help you. But time in the industry, and Greg Glassman said this, and got a lot of shit for it with CrossFit, but he said, people were like, well, how do you know if a coach is good or not? And he said, well, the cream always rises to the top, and those that aren't will go out of business. He always said that. Now, I was always like, well, that's kind of a bullshit attitude. But ultimately, that's what we're seeing happen now in that industry, right? A lot of gyms don't survive because they just don't have the ability. They don't have the skill set. They don't have the business knowledge. And so they're not. And then the people that are left are the legitimate people. And so time will sort it out. But that's obviously, I don't want to see anybody lose money or anything like that. But I would just say do a little bit more research. Like, people jump in without doing any research. And I don't mean research in the sense that, I need to talk to their students, right? But research in terms of, like, are these people speaking at industry events? Are they known by other coaches? Do the other leaders in the industry respect them? Are they, who are they? Or have they just popped up out of nowhere? And that's not to say that someone who is new to business coaching couldn't be successful. If they can, hey, look, this is how my gym made 7 figures. I want to show you how you do it too. That's good enough proof for me. But if there's nothing like that, and you don't see any results, they weren't crushing it as a trainer, they didn't have a gym before, they did, you can't find anything about them. Chances are that, it's because there's nothing exists. And so you just have to do your due diligence. I would say this as well: if someone is messaging you, and if people are aggressively trying to get you to become clients via, adding you on Facebook and then chat messaging you saying, hey man, like, would you like some help? That's probably a good sign that they're struggling. Because cold cooling, so to speak, that's just, it's an old way of doing business. And so if they're pushing more than they're pulling, that's something there. But like I said, it's not even whether they got a good website. Like, it doesn't matter. Like, none of that matters. What matters is how long have they been in the industry? What are their results previously? What do people say about them? If you find a bunch of negative reviews, chances are that maybe you should avoid it, right? If you find a bunch of positive reviews, chances are they might be great. And like I said, it's difficult to determine, but it's kind of like, if you just think about it, if you were going to go hire your own personal trainer, like, you probably wouldn't go hire the celebrity on Instagram, what's his name, Devin, whatever, from Shreds, just because he's got a 6-pack abs, right? So just because someone's sitting in a Lamborghini doesn't mean that they have the business chops. So just spend a little time going, okay, who is this guy? Has he been around a while? What does he have? What are other people saying? Is he speaking at industry events, or does nobody know who he is? And do I want to? And ultimately, comes down to, do I want to take a risk on this guy? Do I feel like I can take a risk? Because they may be able to help you, or they may not. But, what I typically find is that, people hire those people that are just passing on other people's information. It may work, but then when it doesn't work, that person has nothing left to give. And that's really the sign of a great coach. Here's the thing, when you hire a mentor, and this is just, I'll end this thought on this, but when you hire a mentor, if you think it gets easier, then you've already made a mistake, right? When you hire a mentor, it should be to understand that they're going to help you navigate through all of the obstacles you're about to uncover. And that's what a real mentor, a real coach should be able to do, is that, hey, you're coming to me, you have this problem. We're going to dig, and we're going to find all these other problems. We're going to find all these other beasts and demons and all these things you're battling. And the business is going to get to this point, and it's going to create all this stress. But guess what? You've got me to help you navigate through it. If at the first sign of adversity your coach is unavailable, you probably got the wrong coach. And that's something that I think, as you would be able to relate to with your clients that you work with in the gym, the difficulty is not getting them to sign up. The difficulty is getting them to change their entire life in order to meet the goal that they know they want, but were unaware of what it was going to take to get there. And I think that's really what you gotta look at. And so, typically results are a good way to see that, and to tell. And sometimes, if you go off your intuition, if it just doesn't feel right, just don't be the first to take the risk. Give it a little time. But it's difficult because, like I said, there's a lot of people out there who could really help you at where the point you're at. But just realize that, just like in your fitness journey, and I'm sure you relate, the people you learn from in the beginning. If, you know, I began learning fitness stuff from Flex magazine and muscle development and muscle and fitness. Like, would I send people there? Absolutely not. I wouldn't take a workout out of that, at all. But that's where I started, So sometimes people, they gotta understand as part of that journey is they're going to be working with someone and they're going to have to find someone else. Nothing like, but it just depends on what you can afford and where you're at, and understand that the pay to play is real, but sometimes you might have to start with something less in order to be able to go and move to that next level. A lot of people can't afford, a nutritionist when they begin, but they could begin by, understanding, okay, this person has a book or this person has that. So I think it comes down to personal responsibility and, and understanding that the mentor is not your savior. The person you're hiring is not there to save you. The person you're hiring is there to guide you, and your results are your results. And so if you're looking for someone to save you, then, like I said, if you're looking for someone to make everything easy on the other side, like, you made a mistake. So you might want to just look at where you're at. So I hope that answered the question.
It crushed it. I mean, that's what I truly believe. I mean, I start with books. I mean, I remember when I was a box gym trainer, and, I had to learn from Mike and Juan Carlos Santana and all of the people. I get one DVD. And same thing with mentors and building my business. I started with, maybe they're a digital course. Then I was able to go to an event, and then I was able to hire, as a mentor. And I think that's the thing you said is do your due diligence. Make sure that they can, follow along and say, oh, are they doing it for other people? And then go with your gut too. You got to trust your gut and see where they are. I mean, I really think that was just some nuggets. We're going to land this plane because this has been a really great interview. I really appreciate the time. I want to hit you up with 5 questions that I'm just going to rapid answers, just kind of let the people who might not know about you and stuff like that. What's your favorite business book?
Favorite business book? Ready, Fire, Aim.
Ready, Fire, Aim. Great. Favorite exercise?
Ooh. It's changed over the years. Right now I'm really into like maces, like mace stuff, and like that kind of Indian clubs and maces. So
okay, I thought it was gonna be the bench press.
It would have used to be. Yeah, it would have been back 2 years ago.
On a date night, movie or dancing?
I would probably default to a movie, but I would actually prefer to go dancing with my wife. It's just more planning into that. But I love to dance. She loves to dance. So yeah, that would be what I would pick. Yeah.
Awesome. Whiskey or wine?
Good glass of red wine.
Okay. And the last question, what's your favorite sports team?
Ooh. Well, now I would say it's Pittsburgh Steelers. We're big NFL fans here. Growing up, I was a massive basketball fan. I was always Chicago Bulls. And then I kind of lost faith in the NBA. It's a bit of a bore. I prefer college basketball over the NBA now. But yeah, Pittsburgh Steelers. Really got into football, and my wife's a big football fan. So we're Steelers fans now.
Absolutely. And we're going to end this with a quote from your blog. I mean, I have to actually read it so I get it right. It was, I was a powerlifting world record holder, a highly successful entrepreneur, living in a house of 2 master bedrooms and more money than I'd ever dreamed possible. But I was still unhappy. What does that mean? Like, because I know a lot of people are chasing happiness out there and they don't know what it is, but it seems like you had hit the pinnacle, but yet you still weren't happy. Why?
Yeah, ultimately, when you reach the top of the mountain and the clouds pop, you see across the horizon, you realize there's always a bigger mountain to climb. And the biggest thing is that, people either live, it seems, in the past, and they're living, in regret or living in shame or disappointment from past, or they're living in the future and they're living in disappointment on what they haven't yet achieved. And so at that point in time, ultimately what I realized was that, you know, if I can't be happy in the now and I can't be present, then that's what we're missing. And so, you know, when you see people who have less than you that are happier, you know, and you look at and you study happiness and you realize that only a small percentage of happiness is changed by income, that you realize that there goes so much deeper. And so, to me, it's interesting because we're about to move back to San Diego after being here in Vegas. We moved here to save on taxes, and we moved into this 11,000 square foot mansion and all these different things. And it was just another reminder that, you know, we moved away from family and friends. And why? To save some money on taxes, you know? And it was just another look at like what really makes us happy. And okay, like it doesn't make me happy that California takes 13% of my income and Nevada doesn't. And that I like keeping my money, but I also like being around those that I'm closest with, you know? And so I think a lot of times we get caught up in thinking, hey, once I get to this, you know, I thought once I broke the world record, I would gain fame and respect and notoriety and, you know, just all these things would happen. And nothing really happens. Like once you make a ton of money, nothing really happens. Like if you don't have any friends, you don't have any friends when you have a ton of money, right? And so you start going, okay, it's not about not achieving things, but it's about setting your goals and then every day being happy in chasing the goal, right? And it's not about whether you achieve the goal or not. It's about enjoying the work that gets there, right? And I think that that's something that it's a very difficult concept to grasp, because how do you stay motivated if you relinquish desire, right? How do you stay focused if the outcome doesn't matter? But what it comes back to is that if you're operating from a place of pain or a place of anger or a place of fear or a place of sadness, you know, like that, when you get to where you are, you never actually removed those issues. You simply just have what you wanted with all of those issues. And so you can move forward, and you're more likely to move forward and be more successful if you deal with those issues now than if you wait. And it's such a strange thing. Less is more. And I would employ any of the listeners to begin this process of backwards thinking. That what you think will make you happy will make you sad. What you think will change your life will actually hold you back. And so they always say don't follow the crowd, you know, if everyone's zigging, you got to zag. That's what backwards thinking is. And so the concept of, you know, if I get a huge house, I'll be happy or I'll gain respect. Go the opposite way. What's the smallest thing you can live with? What's the least amount of consumption you can have? And we just had Black Friday and Cyber Monday, right? If you were consuming versus creating and profiting, you're on the wrong side of the table, right? And that's what you have to look at. You have to look at the world and say, like, okay, on average, the world's unhappy. So if I want to be happy, I got to do the opposite to that. And I think that's one of the lessons that I learned the hard way. But I also think that it's one of those things that sometimes you have to experience to actually understand, right? And I think my friend Justin Goff, he just wrote a great article. It's posted on Medium. But, you know, he became a millionaire the last year, and then he was like, why am I unhappy? And, you know, he spent some time digging into that. But it's like he was really unhappy before, and so him becoming a millionaire didn't change the feeling, right? And that's something that I know you understand this. Your feelings, emotions, thoughts, it doesn't matter if you have $0 in the bank or you have $100,000 in the bank, right? Whatever your zero is, that's what brings up those feelings. And so if your business is just you and $0 puts you in the red, then when you get close to zero, you freak out. If your business has an overhead of $5,000 a month, then that $5,000 is your zero. If your business has an overhead of $50,000 a month, then that's your zero. And so, you know, it doesn't matter what level you're at, there's always a zero. You know, it just doesn't look like a zero to everybody else. Right. And that's really, you know, what that meant was just, I had all this stuff and I was like, why am I not happy? Well, I wasn't happy because number one, I was, you know, severely overweight. And I'd done that to try to get that world record. So, you know, I basically, you know, almost killed myself chasing this world record. You know, number two, I wasn't in a great relationship, you know, and the partner I was with, we weren't a good match and I wasn't a good partner for them more than the other. But, you know, I was unhappy in that relationship. You know, the work I was doing at the time wasn't the work I wanted to do. I wasn't passionate about it. And so when you know, I started to deconstruct my life, and powerlifting was the last thing I let go of because I didn't realize that that was ultimately one of the biggest things that was making me unhappy. But I just started removing all these things that were making me unhappy and was able to come out on the other side of that and be like, oh, okay, I have complete control over this on a day-to-day basis. And I think that, you know, to wrap it up here and to leave the people with a final thought, it's just that, you know, happiness doesn't have a price. So it's a choice that you can make at any given moment. And the way to do that is to live in today and say, and it's a Stoic principle here, but it could be worse. It could be worse.
Absolutely, brother. Thank you so much, man. That right there, guys. I mean, a lot of us are chasing this 7 and 8 figures, and we're seeing what people are doing online. A lot of it, I believe, is bullshit. I don't think a lot of people are actually doing what they're saying they're doing. They're positioning themselves. But you guys got to hear AJ just share with you all about, I mean, from the highest to the lowest, you got to find your own happiness. You got to know where zero is for you, and then how you're going to handle that information. AJ, I want to thank you so much for your time today. If someone wants to find out more about you, want to find out where they can hire you, work with you, I know it's hard to get at you, but where would you point them?
You could just check out the website, ajroberts.com. It's always updated with whatever's got going on with the latest stuff, or just follow me on Facebook, facebook.com/AJ Roberts. I got my vanity URL.
There we go. There we go. Awesome, brother. Well, as always, man, I look forward to seeing you inside the circle. Thank you so much for your time today. Have a good day. Enjoy your move, and I'll talk to you soon. Take care.
Thanks, Rahz.